selling over $1 million online with up to 70% profit margin? That's what today's guest has achieved, but we're not talking about Amazon. Today, we're going to dive into her story to see if this marketplace might be somewhere that you can have similar success. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Sellers have lost thousands of dollars by not knowing that they were hijacked perhaps on their Amazon listing, or maybe somebody changed their main image, or Amazon changed their shipping dimensions so they had to pay extra money every order. Helium 10 can actually send you a text message or email if any of these things or other critical events happen to your Amazon account. For more information, go to h10.me/alerts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed, organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the e-commerce world. And we have got, someone here for the first time. We are going to be doing like a deep dive into Etsy. So we've got Dylan here. Dylan, how's it going?
Good. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dylan, is funny, like what I do, with this podcast is sometimes I'll check the Apple podcast charts and I'm like, hey, where are we ranking? And then we are in the, I forgot what it is, like the entrepreneurship category or something. And then so I was looking and then we were like, I don't know, like number 95 or something like that for whatever particular day I was looking at it. And I was just browsing around the other ones because I usually check them. Hey, make sure no Amazon ones are ahead of me. And then yours, I hadn't looked at this in a long time. And so yours was the first one. I was like, wow, here's like rank number 30, 35 or something. So like a lot of people are listening to this, and it was about Etsy. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I sell on Etsy. I think Etsy is great, but I literally don't, I just kind of am winging it on Etsy. And I was like, you know what? A lot of our listeners are Amazon sellers, and not everybody can sell on Etsy. But I figured, there's some people who maybe they haven't considered going to Etsy. So like, let's bring in an expert to talk about it. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of that, let's learn about you, because I know literally nothing about you. Where are you even in the world right now?
Perfect. So I live in San Diego, California right now.
What?
Yeah,
I live in San Diego. I live in San Marcos. Where do you live?
So I'm by the Strand, close to Coronado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're literally like 25, 30 miles from me. And
That's
like,
hilarious.
I know it seems that we don't live in San Diego. Last night in my house, it was not in my house, outside my house, it was 33 degrees.
Yeah.
Like this is not San Diego weather.
Right. Yeah. But so we are military though. So I'm a military spouse. My husband works on Point Loma on the submarine base.
Okay.
So we move a lot. We were up in Seattle. We've been in Connecticut. But I'm originally from Minnesota. He's from Hawaii. We met in Seattle I was doing the e-commerce thing up there. And then we moved here.
San Diego normally is a little bit, warmer than Minnesota. I mean, you probably thought this week you've been back home, but okay. So I don't hear a strong Minnesota accent.
I have not been back there probably 17 years since I lived there. So I left for school, did the e-commerce career thing, moving around the country, and then
where'd you go to school?
Yeah, the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Okay. Like I remember they had what's their mascot there? They had a good basketball team like 1 year, like years ago.
The Tribe.
The Tribe.
Well, they might have changed it for some reasons.
Yes. A lot of that going around.
Right.
These days.
So that's what we were. I was on the dance team, so I was all into the whole basketball team thing. It was really fun. But yeah, studied business there, then got out, moved to Las Vegas. I worked for Zappos, owned by Amazon. So that's where I got my start in e-commerce, and then moved up to Seattle, worked for Zulily, the flash sale site. And then moved down to San Diego, and there's not a lot of e-commerce here. Thought about working for Petco headquarters, not quite what I was looking for. So I started on Etsy, and I did not expect it to become what it did. But
tell me that thought process though. Like, that's not a normal thing. Like, there's not much e-commerce. Let me start on Etsy. How did you know about Etsy? Like, were you a shopper on Etsy or something, or what made you think that that's the route you should have gone?
Yeah, so I'm a straight up hustler, okay? So I was dog walking. I was buying like jewelry from China, selling it on eBay. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to just make a buck, right? And so I took a picture of something I made for our wedding, and I put it on Etsy. I thought maybe someone would buy this. Now this thing, it was a letter J made out of foam and toothpicks, okay? Foam and toothpicks with some flowers on it. So there was no way I could ship this thing to anyone. But someone bought it. And then by the time someone bought it, I forgot I had listed it. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Someone bought this. Now I have to figure out how to make it.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, that was about almost 7 years ago.
Did you make it, or did you have to cancel the order?
My husband handled that one. He kind of figured out the engineering. We made it work. So that was our first sale. We didn't get our first sale until 2 months on the platform, though.
What year I know you just said it, but I totally went over my head. What did you say year we're talking about here?
So that was 2016.
Okay, so it's been a while. So
It's been a while.
2016. All right.
Yeah.
So then, what was your next product like? That was like, okay, that was an accident, but now, hey, let's do this for reals. Like, what was your first kind of like quote unquote real product that you sold on Etsy?
Yeah, my next product. So my whole first year, I just had two products. The next thing was a thing for a nursery, a baby mobile. Now, two products for my first year, but we did 134,000 with those two products. So
Wow.
it was, yeah.
And you made all of that in house?
I did. One bedroom apartment with a dog and a baby. And yeah, we were cranking out orders. We were making stuff with our jigsaw on the patio in Mission Valley, not exactly the place to do that. But we made it work.
Wow. Okay. Now, fast forward, we're going to fill in the gaps here, but fast forward to, now we're in toward the middle of 2023. What did you end like 2022 in like gross sales on Etsy? Just so people understand the potential.
Yeah. So, I've done $1.5 million on Etsy, over $1 million in profit.
Profit?
In profit. Yeah. That's the kicker.
Good
That's
grief.
the kicker. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's got to be a lot. I mean, that's millions of dollars of gross sales then on Etsy. Wow.
Yeah. So, so last year our revenue was 370,000, between 70 and 75% margin on that. So really, really good margin.
We don't know about those kind of margins in the Amazon world. That's awesome.
I know it's possible with Etsy though. And yeah, I do sell on Shopify and a little bit on Amazon Handmade as well. But Etsy is definitely the biggest piece of our business.
Let's level set again and just explain about Etsy, because I've got questions, because like, I think everybody kind of has shopped on Etsy at least once, maybe, somehow they did something in search and then maybe an Etsy thing came up. But then a lot of us who don't know too much about Etsy, like we might assume that it's, hey, this is just like how you started, like handmade goods from your own house. But then, and I know they're strict about some things, but then like I'm looking on Etsy, like right now I'm looking at Etsy and I see like baseball cards on here. So like, what exactly is like allowed to be sold on Etsy and what's not?
Yeah. So there's a lot of gray area with Etsy. Sometimes I wonder if they keep it that way on purpose. But there's so much flexibility. So yes, they're very strict about things like copyright, right? Like things like that. You hear about shops getting shut down all the time for that kind of thing. But in terms of the rules and regulations on what you can sell, they're pretty flexible. So we have, obviously, there's the handmade or altered category. I call it the altered category because you can literally buy something that's completely finished, add something tiny to it, just something tiny, change it in some small way, and then it's handmade.
So like this water bottle, I could buy this water bottle, but if I spray paint this cap red or something, theoretically that would qualify because I altered it.
It would.
Huh. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then, there's the supply category, which is two things. So it's either something that's a component of something else, so like a craft supply, or what they also classify things in the supply category, that's anything for an event or occasion. So anything for weddings, anything for parties. So you could literally buy finished party decor, finished wedding decor, like wedding bouquets and stuff from China, sell it on Etsy. You don't do anything to it, but it's in the supply category. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I've already learned something because I didn't know that. And I gotta check into it. But, I was selling something My reasoning was, where like, even though I didn't really dig into what's allowed and not allowed, I showed you a couple of my products, but like we did this YouTube case study where we showed everybody how we found products to sell on Amazon. And it was like these coffin shelves. And so I'm like, well, you know what? Like it's made by hand somewhere, like I'm getting it from China, but like it's not like this mass produced thing. I just got a small team over there, putting these things together. And I'm like, this still should, so what I did was I picked, hey, this is made by me or a member of my shop or something like that or whatever thing. I'm like, I haven't had any trouble. But then one of my products, I don't know if somebody complained or something, or maybe it was in an Amazon box. It wasn't like a big seller for me, but then I just one day saw that my listing wasn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. And then when I contacted Etsy, they didn't say they can give the exact reason, but that it didn't meet their requirements or something like that. But what do you think happened there? I think it might have been like a mirror. Like a certain kind of mirror, like a Gothic mirror I was selling.
Do you think that picture of the mirror could have been found maybe as a listing photo on AliExpress or something?
For sure. Like because I sold this on Amazon too. Yeah. And all of our Amazon products, like those pictures, ended up on AliExpress and Alibaba and stuff. So that would do it.
That would do it, unless you had marketed that mirror as like a wedding reception decor piece. Because for a wedding, that's an event or occasion. You could have done that. But yeah. See, that's where you just got to be careful. You got to know what the rules are so that you can work with them, right?
Interesting. But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind, because like when you get popular on Etsy or Amazon, I noticed that Alibaba and AliExpress, like a lot of the factories will just start copying the images and stuff. So knowing that that's a danger, could be something interesting to think of. Now I'm looking, let me show you here. I'm like literally looking at baseball card images and stuff. Like, what category would this fall under? I mean, they're not saying that this is a wedding, a wedding decor. Oh, vintage. Yes, it says right here, it highlights vintage from 1990s.
Yeah. I believe I forget if it's 15 or 20 years or 25 years. It's one of those years. It has to be that age. And then vintage, there you go.
I learned a new thing. So like, I have some, like, I think they're like 20 years old, like some old Pokemon collectibles from Japan. So technically I've only been selling those on eBay, but now I can, potentially sell some of these on Etsy. Wow. Fascinating. All right. Did you have a chance to look at our one listing that we had made?
Oh, I did. I definitely did.
You did? So- all right. Hold on. Let me find it myself here. I haven't even looked at this listing in a long time. So let me share my screen so people can see our terrible, or I'm assuming it's probably going to end up not being that great, our listing. Hey, I'm on page 1 of Coffin Shelf. That's another thing I want to ask about, is like ranking and things like that, because I'm like, I've got one of the coolest coffin shelves here. But here is our Etsy listing, guys. It's under our How Cool Is That store. That was the name of that's what I say on the podcast all the time. And we've got like, hey, we've got 500 sales on Etsy, but tell me what, what was your impressions of this, and what are we doing wrong here? And you're not going to hurt my feelings, so don't worry.
Yeah, I know I'm very direct. I don't hold back. But so the photos are actually good. You had someone do these?
Yeah. Like we actually did it in-house. Like we had a photo, like, because at Helium 10 we have a photography team and stuff. So I had them take some images originally for Amazon, but then some of these, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you'll notice this first image had this orange background. Like Amazon, it's required that you have the white background, but on Etsy, nobody uses white background for main image, right?
Not the good sellers, right? I mean, with this, the main problem is your SEO. I mean, this is not Etsy SEO. This is, maybe on Amazon this would do better. I'm not the Amazon expert, but with Etsy, you really need to be looking and thinking about this. Like, what are people actually typing in? So the person who's buying this, do they know that they want a coffin shelf? Or does this someone who's looking for a Gothic decor? You know what I mean? So you don't want to lead with coffin shelf. You want to lead with, it's your most valuable real estate in the front of your title here. So you want to lead with the Gothic decor. Now, who else is buying this? Is this like Halloween decor? Is it, clearly I'm not the customer, right? But no one's going to be typing in 14 by 7 inches. So we don't want that in the title. We could do something like shelf decor. Maybe they're just looking for a decor piece for their, cute shelf, or, a knickknack or something for the console table. But no one's typing in 14 by 7. So the dashes are also breaking up your SEO. If you took those out, you'd be found for nearly twice as much. Same with the commas. So yeah, it's much, much different on Etsy, what you need to do, but we could double your search results, like the number of visits and views, if you updated the SEO.
Okay, so offline or after this, I want you to give, like, I could probably take that and do something. But why don't you literally give me the title you think it should be, and then later on I'm going to come back and say how what kind of differences it had. But let me know what you think the title should be, and I'm going to change it to whatever you say, and I'm sure I'm going to see more sales here. What else? Any other feedback?
Yeah, the description. So description, your SEO really needs to be there as well. So that's something that's missing. Right. We really focus on high converting descriptions. I teach you how to do this in my program, but we really want the description to be high converting. That means enough information, not too much. If you confuse someone with your description, they're just going to bounce. They're not going to reach out to ask you a question. Most people on Etsy are shopping on their phones now. So especially for this type of product, they're probably on their phone. If it's not clear, your description's not easy to read, then they'll move on. So the SEO is missing. That should be at the very top of the description. Should be very consistent with your tags, your title. And then things like shipping information should be in the description, breaking things up to make it more readable.
You're saying I should have shipping information in the description, because I don't think I do, right?
Yeah, turnaround time. Like, wait, where's this coming from? When can I expect to receive it?
Ooh. Yeah, I would imagine, some people are like weary of like, oh, is this going to come from China? No, it's coming from San Diego, California. So let people know that is important. I should have thought of that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also huge opportunities to upsell them. So you have one size here, right? You have one size, you have a couple colors. Now, since the black one sold out, I
have a bigger size too in another listing. So no, yeah, I do have a large coffin shelf. See, you didn't even know that, because I'm not saying that anywhere in this listing. I kept it separate. So maybe that's the thing. Like, I have this variation of black, pink, and purple, but should I have kept the larger size in this variation family, or kept that as a separate listing?
Absolutely, the larger size in here. Yeah, absolutely. So you want to be able to give them any option for this within one listing. So it's too much work to lead them to another listing. It is. Also, instead of saying sold out for black, what I would do is update it to black parentheses ships for one, a month later, depending on when you can get it in. You don't want to limit yourself from getting sales.
That's my family. It's not sold out. I don't know why. I keep telling them to. I'm going to send them a message right now. I don't manage as much. My family does it, so I'm going to send them a message right now. Why is the black sold out? Come on, guys.
Yeah. So there's a lot you can do here, but really, I mean, even variations like a rush order fee, where it's like, okay, you can pay an extra $15 and it'll ship next day. Otherwise, it's normal price and it ships a week later. You can do things like that. So many opportunities to upsell with Etsy within listings.
Amazon sellers out there, what categories would you suggest? I mean, obviously home and kitchen, like this kind of decor, like random niche things like this, or the other things we sell in our account is like egg trays and stuff like that. But I'm, one of our, few thousand Amazon seller listeners out there, and I'm selling in X category. Who would you suggest to like at least start to take a look? Not that Etsy would be a home run for every single person, but what are some categories where it's like, hey, you definitely should take a look at, maybe Etsy might be for you? What are some categories where, nope, absolutely not? You're selling iPhone case. Actually, iPhone cases would be, that is a popular thing on Etsy, but electronics or something like that. Like, what are the categories that are yes, go, and no go, and no go?
Yeah. So people on Etsy, they really want something unique, right? They're not just, they're a different customer than the Amazon customer. They're really looking for something special, unique, really giftable items, personalized items. So if you sell on Amazon and you have the ability to add a personalization to it, to add a name, to add a date, to add a monogram or a letter even, that would definitely be something that you'd want to have on Etsy. Even if you have different color options, or they can upload a picture or a logo to something and you could put it on that. that should be on Etsy for sure. Now, if you're selling things that are kind of vanilla, I'll call it vanilla, things that say, a t-shirt that just says like live, laugh, love, kind of vanilla things, I wouldn't really take your time to put that on Etsy. They want something more unique. And it's really hard if you go into something super saturated, like just generic women's t-shirt, and there's nothing special about your design. You don't have a strong track record. I wouldn't even waste your time on that with Etsy.
What are some things that, like some activities that might not be, or that might be banned on Etsy that are not common knowledge? Like, like maybe, like, hey, I'm not going to sell some drug related, thing, like that's common sense. But like, for example, some people don't realize that if you sell a product on Walmart nowadays, Walmart.com, you cannot fulfill it by Amazon. In other words, if Walmart catches that you sent an item from FBA, because of the tracking number or because it had Amazon on the box, and they somehow intercept it, and they know that you did that, you'll get banned. Your Walmart, like that's not common knowledge. Like, is there anything like that on Etsy? Like, hey, you can't do this, or you can't use Amazon's fulfillment, or you can't like make a shirt and then you sell it from merch by Amazon, or kind of Etsy doesn't care about those kind of things?
So you do need to be careful with things like drop shipping. Now, I work with a lot of Etsy sellers, and some of them, they started their shop just by drop shipping, and they're not selling something. So they're selling finished goods, but it's not considered a supply, and it's not considered, an item for like a wedding or event. So these are just like finished, apparel that they had no impact on the design. So they were not involved in the design process at all. They're just drop shipping. Now you can't do that. You have to have some hand in the design process. So you have to be working with the manufacturer in some way. And a lot of people are just drop shipping things. And eventually you will get caught. Other things it's more than a slap on the wrist, you can really get shut down pretty quickly for, is Disney. Disney is like, if you type in Disney, you'll see thousands of listings, right? Just because other people are doing it though, it doesn't mean that you're safe. It just means, because even Disney, they have to go listing by listing and report that. So it takes them, it's someone, making who knows how much per hour is going through these listings and scrubbing them one by one. So just because you see listings still up doesn't mean that you would be safe to do that.
Just to, people can see what you've done on Etsy, but just to, people might consider you, well, sure, she's successful, she's an expert, on Etsy, but some of your students, like, you don't have to mention names or what they sell. If you can, great. But can you give some brief examples of some of the success stories from some of your students or people that you have in your network, so people can understand the potential of what they could do on Etsy?
Yeah. So the people I work with, right? The people I work with are more in the breed of, I want to quit my job and I want to replace my income. Like, I am so burned out. And a lot of them, attorneys, doctors, nurses, dentists, hygienists, like people who are making good money, right? They're making good money, but they're super burned out and they can't just afford to quit their job because they're making too much. So really, we are working and building up their Etsy income in tandem while they're working full time to fully replace that. And I would say, for me, it's a win when they quit their jobs. Like, their goals are my goals. So people who have done that, I would say, we have some students who've done that within 6 months of launching on Etsy. So it's definitely possible. It's not too saturated. The ones who do it, though, are relentless, absolutely relentless. They have no quit. And they're willing to do and make or sell what people want versus what they like. That's like the biggest difference is there's a whole breed of Etsy sellers who sell what they like. It's their art, right? It's a passion project. The ones who really are relentless, have no quit, and they're willing to sell anything that will sell, they get to their goals much faster. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, one thing I suggest to Amazon sellers or prospective Amazon sellers is like, hey, like $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Not everybody has that in order to start their own private label business, be able to order 1,000 units from a factory in China. So like, a gateway drug almost is doing things with lower investment, be it merch by Amazon or Kindle books. But then I also say, hey, maybe you have something you can do on Etsy. You're not mass producing, something. So like, let's say there's somebody who's listening, their eventual goal is to be a private label seller on Amazon. Mm-hmm. They know they have to, get some money together. what would be your suggestion to them if they're just like, hey, I've only got, a couple $100 to my name, or not to my name, but a couple $100 of liquid that I can deal with here. I'm totally fine with taking the long game. How can I take this couple $100, $500, $700 or whatever, and start my own Etsy business? Like, what would be their path?
Yeah. So we want to go wide, not deep. We really want to go wide, not deep. The first thing you sell or the first thing you list it's not a guarantee that that's going to be what you become known for a year from now.
Sure.
So you want to have a good mix to launch with. And I give my students this like 10-step opportunity checklist just to vet their idea. Because when you're starting and you have like $500, you can't afford to make a bad bet. You can't. So, put out 3, 4, 5 things that are a sure bet that pass the test. And literally, you have to be willing to sell the first few at cost. Just get some sales under your belt. People are, they're so, I don't know what it is, but they're holding on to that margin. They really want to hold the margin, and 50% margin, like right out the gate. And it's like, okay, it might take you 3 months longer to get your first 5 sales if you do that. Take the hit. It's worth it, right? Just sell it at cost, get a few going. And then you can start to pull levers to scale. But we don't want to be having the strategy that you should have 1 year in on your first month. We shouldn't be doing that.
Now, talk to me a little bit about Amazon Handmade. That's something I've never sold on. Like, that's just a regular Seller Central account, right? It's not separate like Merch by Amazon is. It's just your login is the same as like a regular Amazon seller, and you've got access to advertising and things like that.
Yeah. So access to advertising. Yeah. I mean, they definitely have been pushing the advertising. With Amazon Handmade, I don't know about you, but I'm getting calls constantly from the account managers for this, trying to get ad money from me. Okay. And I'm really happy with the revenue we've seen. So I'm not really even wanting to spend on ads at this point, but Amazon Handmade. Now, my big hiccup with that, my big hang up, I should say, was the return policy. So with Etsy, you set your own return policies. I did not want to be dealing with returns of handmade things that are custom made to order. So the account manager showed me this workaround where it's basically customized with some kind of writing or something where it's technically Amazon custom. You set it up under Amazon custom, and then you don't have to accept returns. So you're an Amazon custom
and Amazon Handmade at the same time.
Exactly. Yes. And that's the biggest reason I was, okay, let's do it. So if you are on Etsy and you thinking about going on Amazon, I would start with things that are customized.
And on Amazon Handmade, I don't even know this, but like, are you fulfilling, is everybody in Handmade fulfilling their own orders, or you can also utilize FBA as well for that?
You can utilize FBA, but then you have to accept returns. So that's why I did it.
What do you do?
I fulfill it. So it's just like an Etsy order. They come in the same way. They go out the same way.
Where do you make more profit on?
Well, so that was another thing, your pricing on Amazon is supposed to be like the best pricing. So I just make a slightly different product line for Amazon so that I can have the same margin on both Amazon and Etsy.
Because otherwise you'd probably make less on Amazon, like if you had it at the same price?
Yeah, the fees are a little bit higher.
Okay.
A little bit higher. So, yep. So I just basically offset that by offering some higher price point items, just buffing up my margin a little bit more. And that makes it worth it.
And then how, what are sales like on, like on a similar product? Is Etsy, outselling Amazon 2-to-1, or what's the breakdown, would you say?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've only been on Amazon for 1 year. So it's probably 50-to-1 Etsy to Amazon. Yeah. And I only put one product on Amazon, actually, one of my product lines, just like 2-3 listings, kept it at that. So I could kind of just use it as a playground and see how it works. And I'm fine with that. At this point, we're kind of drinking water from a fire hose with Etsy and the website. So I keep the chaos to a manageable level.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now tell me about your course that you have. Like, we at Helium 10, we have this Freedom Ticket, where it's called the Freedom Ticket program, where, we kind of like take everybody from the A to Z of how to sell on Amazon and go into the logistics and go into keyword research and SEO. Is yours more of like a coaching program, or it's also like a course as well?
Yeah, so I launched this back in August. We have about 400 students. About 25% of those are doing the coaching with me, and the rest are just doing the course itself. So this is a course you have lifetime access to. It's really meant to take you from zero to multi six figure profit. But about half of my students, while they're starting from zero, the other half I work with, they're students who might have like 50 to 70,000 sales. They're doing over $1 million in revenue. So it's quite the mix. But yeah, there's the course and then there's the coaching option.
How do you juggle, this, like I know how it is when I've always, or I've, for the last few years, at least I've been selling online, but then I'm also, Helium 10 is my day job and stuff. And so sometimes it's hard to juggle both. Like, do you have a team now that helps you on your Etsy side and fulfillment and some things? I know your husband helps you out in some things as well.
Yeah.
How does it work? How does all this work for you?
Yeah, so I have someone, she's actually a military spouse. She's amazing. She comes in every day and she's working on orders and doing fulfillment. So she's really fully focused on that. My husband is also helps in wherever he can, but he is full-time military, active duty. And then, really for me, I am coaching all day long. I'm on calls on Zoom all day long, helping people with their businesses. And then still overseeing the Etsy side, still keeping, the production and things going. But I'm really fully focused now on helping other people build their businesses.
All right. So what we do on this show is we ask our guests to give our 60-second tip, or it could be 30-second tip there. But what's some hard-hitting strategy, kind of like a cool hack or strategy or advice for people selling on Etsy?
Okay. So I would say that right now, the majority of people who are starting to sell on Etsy are really looking for passive income. And they go into this wanting that passive income, the laptop lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason that most people fail is because that's not at all going to be your first 12 months, okay? Most people are not willing to put in the grind of what it really takes to get to that passive income. It actually takes a lot of active work up front. So if you are thinking about going onto Etsy, don't do it because you want passive income for that sole reason. Do it because you're wanting to build a business that's, high volume, high revenue, consistent for you, but be willing to work for it. If you're not willing to put in the work, don't even bother because it'll dilute your efforts from maybe your Amazon business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if somebody's interested in reaching out to you, how can they find you on the interwebs? You mentioned YouTube. Let's definitely mention the podcast, your course, etc.
Yes. So you can find me on YouTube, just at Dylan Jahraus. I think we're up to 20,000 subscribers now. And then on Instagram at Dylan Jahraus as well. And then the podcast.
How do you spell it? Just for
yes, Jahraus, right? It took me a while to learn how to spell it too. It's Jahraus, and then Dylan. It's probably another one hard to spell. Dylan, like Bob Dylan. So Dylan Jahraus, and the podcast. Now my husband runs the podcast, and I believe he even named the podcast. I believe he named it $1 Million Etsy Seller. I believe that's what it is.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now. Let me share my screen here. I just got on here. You even got a cool logo here. $1 Million Etsy Seller. Here's some of your recent episodes.
Great. He's doing a great job. So, yeah. Yep. So,
Awesome.
I'd love to connect with you. Even if you have any questions like, is Etsy right for me? Could I sell the same product on Etsy? I could let you know. Yeah.
Would the course be for somebody like me who's already selling on Etsy, or my family really took this over? My wife and kids are doing most of it, but like, would we find benefit in taking your course? Like, to kind of like, obviously we don't know what we're doing because we just threw stuff together, or is this more for like brand new to Etsy sellers?
No, about half of my students are doing really high volume. So 50 to 70,000 sales, been on Etsy for 10 plus years. Sometimes they've done over $1 million yearly revenue. So it would definitely be for anyone who's really looking to level up both the revenue, the profit, and the consistency factor.
Awesome. All right. Now, I forgot to ask this question, so I'm asking this totally out of order here, but if I am newer, what is, like a 60-second kind of like product research strategy about like where to find the opportunity and the niche? As like you said, it's important that sometimes that we just don't go like, oh, this is what I'm passionate about. Sure, there's going to be people like that and they can have success. But if you're just like, hey, I don't really have a passion, but I want to go where the money is. How do I find those gaps where I can make decent gains on Etsy?
Yeah. So there's two things I would say. Sometimes people are saying, oh, you should pay for Everbee, Marmalade, Sales Samurai, but you don't have to pay for it. You could really get all the information you need from the free version of eRank. You just look at basically the ratio of supply and to the search results. So that tells you the level of competition relative to how many people are searching for that. But I also would note that if you are really wanting to become a market leader on Etsy, do not look to Etsy to see what the opportunity is, because Etsy is one of the last places to pick up on trends. So look outside, look at Pinterest, look at influencers, look at big premium brands who are, on the cutting edge of fashion and trends. That's where I would look before looking on Etsy.
All right. Well, Dylan, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, Secrets of a $1 Million Etsy Seller. You might see a familiar face in an upcoming episode there. So subscribe and then wait for that podcast. But let's maybe reach out. I like bringing people back once a year, on the show. So what I'm gonna do is maybe take your course myself, and then next year let's connect, and then let's show people how we've been able to level up my Etsy account from your training. So thank you, Dylan, for joining us.